I still remember the sound of Derek Langston's laugh echoing through his corner office. It wasn't a friendly chuckle or even a nervous giggle, it was the kind of laugh that cuts through your chest and settles in your stomach like a rock. "A 15% raise," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "Sheila, your back office name tag, be happy you still have a desk." I'd been at Lang Corp for 9 years, 9 years of arriving early, staying late, and building systems that saved the company millions. 9 years of watching Derek take credit for my algorithms in board meetings while I sat in my tiny cubicle, invisible. My face burned as I stood there in his glass office, the Chicago skyline stretching behind him like a movie set. Other employees walked past in the hallway, probably wondering why the quiet supply chain analyst was meeting with the CEO. "I've increased efficiency by 38%, I said quietly. "My routing system alone saved $2 million last quarter." He waved his hand dismissively. "That's your job, Sheila. You don't get a parade for doing what we pay you for." I nodded slowly, my hands trembling slightly. "Okay," I whispered. As I walked toward his door, I heard him already dialing his phone. "Margaret, cancel my 3 o'clock and send me the Q3 numbers on the logistics algorithm." My algorithm, the one I'd built on my personal laptop at home. The walk back to my cubicle felt like a death march. Empty desks surrounded me, casualties of last month's layoffs. Derek had cut 20% of staff while giving himself a bonus for cost management. The company newsletter sat on my keyboard, featuring a front-page article about his innovative leadership in supply chain optimization. My innovation. My late nights. My breakthrough. I slumped into my chair and stared at the gray fabric walls that had been my prison for nearly a decade. A sticky note on my monitor caught my eye. "Meeting with DL today," I'd written it 3 days ago, full of hope and nervous energy. That hope was dead now. I opened my bottom desk drawer and pulled out a worn leather notebook marked "Private IP" in my handwriting. Inside were hundreds of pages of diagrams, formulas, and timestamps. Every breakthrough that had revolutionized Lang Corp's logistics was documented here, dated and signed. All of it created at home. All of it mine. My computer chimed with an old message notification, a saved draft from 6 months ago. From Cal Monroe, COO of Axion Logistics, our biggest competitor. "Sheila, whenever you're ready to discuss opportunities, we're still very interested. Your reputation precedes you." I stared at those words for a long time. That night I spread my notebook across my kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene, page after page of innovation, all time-stamped between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. personal laptop logs. Home Wi-Fi connections. Even grocery receipts showing when I bought energy drinks to fuel those late-night coding sessions. I'd been so careful to document everything, almost like I'd known this day would come. The routing algorithm that Derek bragged about? Created on a rainy Tuesday in my living room. The predictive analytics system? Born during a weekend when I couldn't sleep. The cost optimization model? A product of 3 months of evenings while everyone else watched Netflix. None of it belonged to Lang Corporation. I'd been too paranoid about intellectual property theft to use company equipment or company time. Every innovation had emerged from my personal dedication, using my own resources. Legally, it was all mine. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Cal Monroe's contact. My finger hovered over the call button for 5 minutes. Then I thought about Derek's laugh, the way he dismissed 9 years of loyalty with a wave of his hand. "Still want to talk?" I typed. The response came within an hour. "Tomorrow night. Yuppies on Michigan Avenue. 8 o'clock, my hands shook as I set down the phone. I was really doing this. Yuppies was the kind of restaurant where deals were made over expensive wine and handshake agreements. Cal Monroe stood as I approached his table, a distinguished man in his 50s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Sheila Ward," he said. I've heard remarkable things about your work. We ordered dinner, and Cal got straight to business. Your systems revolutionized Lang Corp's logistics. Everyone in the industry knows it, even if Derek takes the credit. Heat crept up my neck. How did you? Supply chain is a small world. Your innovations don't go unnoticed. He leaned forward. I'm prepared to offer you triple your current salary, a leadership position, and full recognition of your intellectual property. Triple. My mind reeled. That was more than Derek made. There's something you should see, I said, pulling out my notebook. I flipped through pages of diagrams and code, watching Cal's eyes widen. This is all yours, he asked. Every line. Created at home, on my personal equipment. I have timestamps, development logs, everything. Cal set down his wine glass. Sheila, you're not just joining Axion. You're going to transform it. For the first time in years, I felt valued. When do I start, Brett? Whenever you're ready to leave the past behind. Monday morning felt different as I walked into Lang Corp's gleaming lobby. I carried my resignation letter in a manila folder, along with copies of all my documentation. My hands were steady now, no more trembling, no more doubt. Derek's assistant waved me toward his office. He's got 5 minutes, she said without looking up. I placed the letter on his mahogany desk. Derek glanced at it, then at me, his eyebrows raised in mild amusement. Resignation, Sheila. If this is about the raise, I'm going to work for Axion Logistics, I said simply. The color drained from his face. Axion wasn't just a competitor, they were Lang Corp's biggest threat, constantly stealing clients with superior technology and customer service. Axion? His voice cracked slightly. Sheila, let's be rational here. I'm sure we can work something out. You had 9 years to work something out. He stood up, pacing behind his desk. You realize we're finalizing our biggest deal next month, the Morrison account, using your system. My system. There it was again. Good luck with that, I said, turning toward the door. Wait. Derek's desperation was showing. The raise, 15%, 20, whatever you want. And a promotion. Senior analyst. Maybe even director level. I paused at his door, looking back at the man who'd laughed at me just days ago. You already laughed, Derek. I'm not coming back. As I cleaned out my desk, other employees whispered and stared. News traveled fast in corporate environments, especially when someone was jumping ship to a major competitor. Derek appeared at my cubicle, his usual confident demeanor replaced by barely controlled panic. Sheila, be reasonable. What will it take? A corner office? Stock options? Name your price. I continued packing my personal items, the few plants that had survived the fluorescent lighting, my coffee mug from my college graduation, the photo of my parents. It's not about money anymore, I said quietly. Then what? Revenge? This isn't like you. I looked up at him, then really looked at him. You're right. The old me would have stayed, accepted your dismissal, kept quiet. But you laughed at 9 years of dedication. You called me a name tag. His jaw tightened. I was having a bad day. So was I. The difference is I'm doing something about it. I picked up my box and walked toward the elevator. As the doors closed, I saw Derek already on his phone, probably calling his legal team. Let him. I had nothing to hide. Axion Logistics felt like stepping into the future, modern offices, collaborative workspaces, and a team that actually listened when I spoke. Cal introduced me as their new Director of Innovation, a title that carried real authority. My new team was half the size I needed, but they were eager and talented. Within a week, I had them trained on a streamlined version of my algorithm, adapted specifically for Axion's client base. "How fast can we deploy this?" asked Sarah, my lead developer. "By Friday," I said. "But we're not just copying what I did at Lang Corporation. We're making it better." The improved system went live the following Monday. Within days, Axion's delivery times dropped by 35% across all major routes. Customer satisfaction scores soared. Word spread through the industry like wildfire. My phone buzzed with a text from my former colleague, Janet. "Holy Sheila, what did you do?" I smiled, typing back, "My job. Finally." But this was just the beginning. I had plans, big ones. Cal knocked on my office door, looking both impressed and slightly concerned. "Our talent acquisition team wants to know, who else from Langcorp might be interested in joining us?" I'd been waiting for this question. I pulled out a list I'd been compiling for months, talented employees who'd been overlooked, undervalued, or pushed aside by Derek's ego-driven management style. At the top of the list, Natalie Chen, customer experience lead. 5 years of brilliant work, consistently ignored in meetings, passed over for promotions despite bringing in 3 major clients. "Natalie's the one we need," I said. "She knows every client pain point, every service gap. Derek treats her like a secretary, but she's strategic gold." Cal nodded. "Reach out. But be discreet." I was already crafting the message in my head, ready to be seen. "Natalie." That evening I sent a carefully worded text, "Coffee tomorrow? I have an opportunity that might interest you." Her response came quickly, "About time someone called. Some people just need permission to be brave." Natalie didn't just accept Axion's offer, she announced her departure with the subtlety of a nuclear bomb. Her LinkedIn post appeared Tuesday morning, shared and reshared across the industry. "After being undervalued for a decade at Langcorp, I'm excited to join Axion Logistics, where innovation is respected and talent is recognized. Looking forward to working with brilliant minds who see potential instead of hierarchy." The post exploded. Within hours, it had hundreds of likes and dozens of comments from other Langcorp employees, current and former, sharing their own stories of feeling overlooked and underappreciated. My phone started buzzing with messages. "Janet from accounting, is Axion hiring in finance?" "Marcus from IT, heard you landed on your feet. Any openings?" Even people I barely knew were reaching out, asking about opportunities. Derek's empire was cracking, and the cracks were spreading fast. Cal found me at my desk, scrolling through the avalanche of resumes flooding our HR system. 67 applications, he said, all from Langcorp employees. "You've started something." I looked up at him. Good talent recognizes good talent. They've been waiting for someone to open the door. "Just make sure we can handle the exodus," he warned. But I was already thinking bigger than just hiring refugees from my old company. 3 weeks later, the industry trade publication ran a comparison study that sent shock waves through the logistics world. Axion's new systems, my systems, outperformed Langcorp in every measurable metric: delivery speed, cost efficiency, customer satisfaction, error rates. We dominated across the board. The Morrison account that Derek had been courting for months? They called him on a Thursday afternoon to cancel negotiations. By Friday, they were signing with Axion. I wasn't in the room when it happened, but Janet texted me the aftermath. Derek literally slammed his office door so hard the glass cracked. Security had to calm him down. The $15 million Morrison deal was Lancer Corp's crown jewel, the contract that would have secured their year and proven Derek's leadership. Losing it to us wasn't just a business setback, it was a public humiliation. That evening, Cal stopped by my office with champagne. "The Morrison deal puts us ahead of Langcorp for the first time in company history," he said, popping the cork. "You didn't just jump ship, Sheila. You built a better boat." I accepted the glass, but something nagged at me. What's next for them? Honestly, they're in trouble. Without Morrison, and with the talent bleeding out. He shrugged. Might be bankruptcy within a year. A part of me felt satisfied. But another part remembered all the good people still trapped there. The lawsuit came on a Monday morning, delivered by a courier in an expensive suit, theft of proprietary systems and trade secrets, with LonCorp demanding immediate cessation of all activities using their algorithms. I'd been expecting this. Derek wasn't the type to go down quietly. My lawyer, Patricia Reeves, spread the legal documents across her conference table and smiled. They're claiming you stole their intellectual property. That's what they're claiming. She pulled out my documentation, the notebook, the timestamps, the development logs, even email records where I'd offered to sell the IP to LonCorp and been ignored. Sheila, they don't have a case. If anything, they've been using your property without permission. We crafted our response carefully, not just a defense, but a counterattack. If Derek wanted to play legal games, we'd show him how the game was really played. What are the chances they'll settle? I asked. Patricia grinned. After they see our evidence, they'll be begging to settle. But I had a feeling this was going to get messy before it got better. The hearing was set for a Thursday morning in downtown Chicago. Derek arrived with a team of lawyers, looking confident and well-rested. He nodded at me across the courtroom like we were old friends meeting for coffee. Miss Ward, his lead attorney began, you admit to using systems developed during your employment at LonCorp? I admit to using systems I developed, I replied carefully. On company time? No. On my personal time. Using my personal equipment. Patricia stood up. Your Honor, we'd like to present Exhibit A, an email from Mr. Langston to Miss Ward dated 18 months ago. She projected the email onto the courtroom screen. Sheila, if this new routing system works as well as you claim, we'll deal with the ownership details later. Right now, just make it happen. DL. The judge frowned. Mr. Langston, this suggests you were aware the intellectual property belonged to Ms. Ward. Derek's lawyer whispered frantically in his ear. Your Honor, that email was taken out of context. I don't think it was, the judge interrupted. This could be a significant problem for your case. I watched Derek's confidence crumble in real time. He'd gotten so used to taking credit for my work that he'd forgotten to actually secure the rights to it. LonCorp's stock price plummeted overnight. The lawsuit had made headlines in the business press, and investors don't like uncertainty, especially when it involves a company's core technology possibly being built on stolen intellectual property. CEO loses crown jewel to ex-employee, read the Wall Street Journal headline. The article detailed how a disgruntled analyst had taken the company's most valuable assets to a competitor. Disgruntled, as if wanting fair compensation for groundbreaking work was unreasonable. Client calls started coming into LonCorp. The Morrison account wasn't the only one reconsidering their relationship. 3 other major clients announced they were reviewing their options in light of the legal uncertainty. Janet texted me updates throughout the day. Emergency board meeting at 2 p.m. Investors are demanding answers. Finally, rumor is, they want Derek out. By Friday afternoon, an emergency shareholder meeting was called. The agenda had one item, leadership review. Derek had 24 hours to save his job, and everyone knew he couldn't do it without the technology that was rightfully mine. My phone rang at 11 p.m. Derek's name appeared on the screen, and for a moment I considered letting it go to voicemail. But curiosity won. Sheila, his voice was hoarse, defeated. Please. We need to talk. About what? About fixing this mess. About coming back. I almost laughed. Coming back to where, Derek? You might not have a company left. The board wants to make a deal. Double what Axion pays you. Triple. Whatever it takes. It's not about money anymore. Then what? What do you want? I looked out my apartment window at the Chicago skyline, lights twinkling like stars. I want you to understand what you threw away. I want you to realize that the person you called a back office name tag was the reason your company succeeded. Silence stretched between us for a long moment. Sheila, please, I hung up. Some bridges are meant to be burned. The next morning Derek was waiting by my car in Axion's parking garage. He looked terrible, unshaven, wrinkled suit, the kind of desperation that comes from watching your empire collapse in real time. You're ruining lives, he said as I approached. Do you realize how many people are going to lose their jobs? I stopped walking and really looked at him. You're blaming me for the consequences of your decisions. I made a mistake, okay? I'm sorry. About the raise. About calling you a name tag. But this, he gestured wildly, this is destroying everything. No, Derek. You destroyed everything. You built a company on other people's talent and took credit for their work. I just stopped enabling it. Those people depend on their jobs. Then maybe you should have thought about that before laughing at the person keeping your company afloat. He grabbed my arm and I pulled away sharply. Don't, I warned. Please, Sheila. I'm begging you. Come back. Help me fix this. I got in my car and rolled down the window. You can't fix 9 years of taking people for granted with one conversation. Some things, once broken, stay broken. Susan Martinez knocked on my office door Friday afternoon, her face flushed with anger. We'd worked together for 6 years. She was good at her job, loyal, and had been laid off 3 months ago when Derek decided to streamline operations. Because of you, I lost my job, she said, closing the door behind her. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Susan, I didn't make the decision to lay people off. But you started this war. Langorp is hemorrhaging clients because of your little revenge scheme. The words stung, because there was truth in them. My actions had consequences beyond just hurting Derek. I'm sorry you lost your job, I said quietly. But I didn't cause the layoffs. Poor leadership did. Easy to say when you landed in a corner office. I leaned forward. I have an opening on my team. Senior analyst position. 20% more than you made at Lawncorp. Interested? Susan's face hardened. I don't want your pity job. It's not pity. You're good at what you do. She stood up. Not everyone can afford to be brave, Sheila. Some of us have mortgages and kids and can't just burn bridges whenever we feel slighted. After she left, I sat alone in my office for a long time, thinking about the cost of standing up for yourself. That weekend, I compiled a spreadsheet of every Lawncorp employee who'd been laid off in the past year. 189 names, people with families, mortgages, dreams. Casualties of Derek's cost-cutting measures and poor strategic decisions. By Monday morning, I had a plan. I walked into Cal's office with a proposal. Project Bridge, I called it, an initiative to hire and retrain displaced workers, not just from Lawncorp, but from across the industry. You want to hire our competitors' refugees? Cal asked. I want to hire talented people who've been failed by bad leadership. Give them new skills. Better opportunities. Cal leaned back in his chair. That's ambitious. And expensive. It's the right thing to do. Sheila, you're making this personal. Maybe it needs to be personal. Maybe the industry needs to see that there's a better way to treat people. He was quiet for a long moment. How many people are we talking about? 50 to start. We can scale from there. Cal nodded slowly. Draw up a budget. If the numbers work, we'll make it happen. For the first time since leaving Lawncorp, I felt like I was building something truly meaningful. Not everyone appreciated my outreach efforts. Some of the laid-off employees rejected my offers outright, viewing them as charity or manipulation. One email particularly stung. "Sheila, you created this mess by starting a war with Derek. Now you want to play savior? Some of us lost everything because of your petty revenge. Keep your guilt money." I saved that email in a folder labeled "Consequences," because there were consequences to every choice, and I needed to remember that my actions affected real people beyond just Derek and his boardroom. But for every rejection, there were two acceptances: people grateful for a second chance, eager to prove themselves in an environment that valued their contributions. Then Derek fired back in the press, a statement released to the business media. LangCorp was systematically sabotaged by a disgruntled employee who stole proprietary technology. We are exploring all legal remedies to protect our shareholders and employees from this corporate espionage. Corporate espionage. Using my own work was apparently corporate espionage. I scheduled a press conference for the following week. It was time to tell my side of the story. The Industry Innovation Awards ceremony was supposed to be a celebration of technological advancement in logistics. I hadn't expected to win anything. I'd been nominated for my work on predictive analytics but assumed the politics of my situation would keep me off the winners list. Then they called my name. Walking to the podium, I spotted him immediately, Derek, sitting at a table near the back of the ballroom, alone, watching me with an expression I couldn't read. "This award represents more than just technological innovation," I said into the microphone, looking directly at him. "It represents the power of recognizing talent regardless of hierarchy or ego. It represents what happens when brilliant people are given the support and recognition they deserve." The applause was thunderous. When I stepped down from the podium, our eyes met across the room. He nodded, a small gesture that might have been respect, or acknowledgement, or just exhaustion. I didn't return it. Some bridges stay burned. Vince Torres, LangCorp's former legal counsel, called me 2 weeks later. We met at a quiet cafe near the river, away from the corporate district where we might be recognized. "I need to tell you something," he said, stirring his coffee nervously. "About the lawsuit. About Derek's strategy." I waited. He knew the algorithms were your personal IP. I advised him multiple times to secure proper licensing agreements, but he always said you were too loyal to leave. The words hit me like a physical blow. He knew. He knew and filed the lawsuit anyway. Figured he could intimidate you into settling or coming back. I stared out the window at the Chicago River, watching boats navigate between the bridges. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you didn't destroy LangCorp, Sheila. You exposed what was already broken. A company built on taking credit for other people's work was never going to last." That evening, I called Patricia with the new information. "This changes everything," she said. "We're not just defending anymore. We're going on the offensive." Derek had made a critical error. He'd underestimated me one final time. LangCorp filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on a gray Thursday morning in November. The company that had once dominated logistics was officially admitting it couldn't pay its debts or maintain operations. My phone rang within an hour. Derek's voice was barely a whisper. "Sheila, I know you hate me. I know I ruined everything. But the remaining staff, 67 people who had nothing to do with this, they're going to lose their jobs. Please help them." For a moment, I heard the man I'd once respected, before ego and entitlement had corrupted him completely. "Send me their information," I said quietly. "Thank you. I'm not doing this for you, Derek. I'm doing it for them." After I hung up, I sat in my office looking out at the Chicago skyline. LangCorp's building was visible from my window, dark floors where people used to work, where I used to believe in something bigger than myself. Cal knocked and entered. Axion's board approved the acquisition of LangCorp's talent and remaining client contracts. We can save most of those jobs. And Derek's golden parachute got cancelled when they filed bankruptcy. He'll land somewhere, but not at our level. I nodded. Justice, it turned out, was more complex than I'd imagined. The integration of Langcorp's remaining employees into Axion took 3 months. We created new divisions, restructured workflows, and most importantly, established a culture where talent was recognized regardless of hierarchy. On a Tuesday morning, I was reviewing integration reports when my assistant knocked. "Someone here to see you," says. Her name is Susan Martinez. Susan stood in my doorway, looking nervous but determined. "I heard you have an opening in project management." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "I thought you didn't want my pity job." "It's not pity if I'm qualified," she managed a small smile. "And I hear the benefits are good." They are. So is the work environment. We talked for an hour, about the role, about the changes at Axion, about second chances and the courage to accept them. "When can you start?" I asked. "Yesterday, if possible." I handed her the offer letter I'd had ready for months. "Welcome to the team, Susan." After she left, I realized something had shifted. The anger that had driven me for months was finally fading, replaced by something more sustainable: purpose. Kira Patel was 24 years old, brilliant, and reminded me of myself 9 years ago. Full of ideas, eager to contribute, but uncertain how to navigate corporate politics. She joined my team as a junior developer and immediately impressed everyone with her innovative thinking. 3 months in, she knocked on my office door with a question that stopped me cold. "How do you know when to speak up?" she asked. "I have ideas for improving our client onboarding process, but I don't want to seem presumptuous." I set down my pen and really looked at her, young, talented, full of potential, waiting for permission to be brilliant. "Kira, you don't wait for permission to add value. You don't wait for someone else to recognize your contributions. If you have ideas that can help, speak up. But what if they reject them? Then you've still planted seeds. Some ideas take time to grow." She nodded, taking notes like my words were sacred text. "But here's the most important thing," I continued. "Never stay quiet when speaking up costs more than staying silent." I spent 9 years being quiet, and it nearly cost me everything. 6 months later, Kira's onboarding system reduced client setup time by 40% and earned her a promotion to senior developer. The mentorship program launched on a Wednesday morning with a simple announcement: the Phoenix Initiative, empowering women in tech through salary negotiation training, intellectual property education, and leadership development. Within 48 hours, we had 400 signups from across the industry, women who'd been overlooked, undervalued, or pushed aside, all looking for the tools and confidence to advocate for themselves. Kira volunteered as a speaker for our first workshop, sharing her story about learning to voice her ideas and the career transformation that followed. "A year ago, I was afraid to speak in meetings," she told the audience of 50 women. "Now I'm leading a team that's revolutionizing client onboarding. The only thing that changed was my willingness to be heard." That Friday, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a framed article from Forbes, "The Woman Who Wasn't Replaceable: How Sheila Ward Transformed an Industry." At the bottom, in familiar handwriting, "You were right. Some people aren't replaceable. DL." I hung the frame in my office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of how far I'd come. Standing before Axion's board of directors, I presented the global expansion plan I'd been developing for months. Markets in Europe, Asia. Opportunities to revolutionize logistics on a worldwide scale using the innovations that had started in my living room years ago. The technology exists, I concluded. The talent is in place. The only question is whether we're ready to think bigger. The vote was unanimous. Axion would go global, and I would lead the expansion as the company's new COO. Cal stood to shake my hand. When I hired you, I thought I was getting a talented analyst. Turns out I was getting a visionary. That evening, I walked into my new corner office, the one with windows on two sides and a view of the entire Chicago skyline. The city stretched out below me, lights twinkling like possibilities. I thought about the woman who'd sat in Derek's office 18 months ago asking for a modest raise, and being laughed at. She'd been so small, so willing to accept scraps. Looking out at the city I was about to help connect to the world, I whispered the words I'd been waiting years to say, not bad for a back-office name tag. The future was bright, and for the first time in my career, I was the one holding the spotlight.